Hey, good afternoon, scholars. Welcome to your second to last class today. Gosh, it feels like Friday, but it's Thursday. This is your last Thursday class, though, because you're not going to have lit content for the second half of next week. We are coming up to almost the end of the book. I think we're going to finish in about two more lessons, possibly three. Today, we saw a slight dip in turn-in rate, but that's because a number of you decided to use the homework passes that you earned. Which is you earned them, right? We still have some great work to look over. So take a second. Grit list. Got a couple new additions. Welcome Joaquin and welcome Ariana. Way to stay on the grit list. Aldair, Chris A, Angel H, Anthony, Catherine, Deasia, Diana, Amani, Jacqueline, Joshua, Madeline, Monica, Molly, Serenity, and Tamar. Everyone take a second to get out your work so that you can compare them to the answers that I'm about to go over and discuss from yesterday. Pause me if you need a second to do that. So yesterday we saw that Buck was spending more and more time outdoors, and we're observing his behavior and his actions and even some of his thoughts, and we're seeing how this call of the wild is impacting is what's it doing to his behavior, and what does that show? What impact is that having on Buck? Um, so um, who did I get this from? I know this one. I took this from Jeshua, and I think Catherine. I think I got this from Catherine. Maybe Molly. Sorry, I should have jotted that down. Um, let's look at some of the evidence and some what they said the impact was. Um, all right, so we've got evidence of him being. Oh, this first evidence, guys. It seemed he was as at much as home among the trees on the ground. That was actually talking about the man, the caveman he was envisioning, because he was really comfortable swinging back and forth. So let's skip past that. The second one, he pursued the call into the forest, looking for it as though it were a tangible thing. He loved to run down dry watercourses and to creep and spy among the bird life in the woods. Here's the impact. Buck is enjoying his opportunities to be free. I don't see the word enjoying anywhere in that evidence, right? That shows me that this is the student's interpretation. He would spring. His excitement was so high, it made him feel he has something to do. It shows that he is meant to be a wild dog. That's awesome. So the impact is like this excitement that is causing Buck, and he's showing it through springing and just, he's clearly enjoying his freedom. Another one, he was impelled to do them. He did them for no reason at all. Impact. His choices are made without him having a doubt about it. The call he receives makes him feel like he needs to follow them. Yeah, these things just seem natural to Buck. Now that he's in the wild, it's like it's unlocking these instincts within him that he just follows without even having to think about. This one's Jeshua's tracker. Jeshua took an interesting take that also some other students did, in that Jeshua and some other students were really thinking about Buck being fulfilled with Thornton or not on this part of the activity, and which was an interesting way to kind of combine the lessons focus to this part of the to this tracker. Jeshua's first quote, it caused him to feel vague, sweet gladness, and he was aware of wild yearnings and stirrings for what he knew not, for he knew not what. And he said that Buck is starting to feel different, and then he makes a prediction that he's going to leave Thornton. So that's an impact too. You could have made a prediction. Um, he said he used the same quote. He would thrust his nose into the cool wood moss and snort with joy at the flat earth. I think he said fat earth in the book. Buck is appreciating nature more than ever and loves it because he's interested in it. So yeah, Buck is really enjoying his time to be free. I pulled Molly's answer for how when Buck meets this wolf in the woods, for how Buck demonstrates to the other wolf that he doesn't mean any harm. She said, Buck demonstrates he means no harm by not making any noise and not attacking, but trying to get closer every time he moves, trying to seem friendly. After the fact, he saw the wolf, he, quote, stalked into the open, half crouching, body gathered compactly together, tail straight and stiff. He didn't want to freak out the other wolf. By staying stiff, he was showing that he was compact and that the other wolf was safe. So, quote, Buck did not attack, but circled him about and hedged him in with friendly advances. Thus, Molly, you love this word, thus. Thus, Buck made his kind presence towards the other wolf by staying compact and silent so that the wolf could trust him. Yeah. You could also have pointed out how each time the wolf got trapped by Buck, Buck would give him an out and then just keep running with him. All right, we got two different opinions on whether Buck feels fulfilled. Jeshua said yes. Jeshua said, I agree that Buck is fulfilled by Thornton because if it wasn't for Thornton, he wouldn't be able to be free and explore nature or even meet the wolf, who will soon become best friends. That's a prediction. I don't know if that's true. Thornton had made Buck stronger inside, and he cares too much for Buck and doesn't want Buck to die or leave. On page 75, it says that Buck was trying to show that he was friendly, and Thornton had taught him that. And for him to, quote, every moment advertise commingling, threatening, and overture of friendliness. This shows that most of everything that Buck learned from Thornton has shown off to become friends with a wolf. Interesting take. Buck enjoys nature, and he learned to love nature from Thornton and snort with joy at the fat earth. Thornton has taught everything Buck needs to know in order to love nature. This concludes why Buck is fulfilled with Thornton. So Jethro makes the point that if what Thornton has taught him how to love and be kind, and also Thornton's the one who brought him out here. If it wasn't for Thornton, Buck would just be a sled dog. Thornton was the one that brought him out to nature and exposed him to all this. Catherine says, I disagree and believe that Buck is not fulfilled by his life with John Thornton. In The Call of the Wild by Jack London, in this section, Buck begins to feel the call get more powerful, and one night goes into the forest. He finds a wolf, and together they begin to travel. But Buck remembers Thornton and returns to camp, leaving the wolf alone to travel. Once Buck returns, he goes to look back for the wolf, but can't find him anywhere, and stays at the camp with Thornton. Quote, Buck is wildly glad. He knew he was at last answering the call, running by the side of his wood brother towards the place where the call surely came. This shows that Buck finally has what he has desired for so long. Buck felt the call was so powerful that he decided to go into the woods and feels he is accomplishing his destiny. Buck feels this great desire to go into the woods and travel to where he feels this call comes from. But after 2 days, the call in the forest began to sound more imperiously than ever. This shows that Buck did not go back to camp because of his lifestyle there, but because of his love for Thornton. Even when Buck was with Thornton, he could still feel the call, but this time it was stronger. Buck decided to go into the woods where the call was coming from in search for his desire to travel freely. The only thing or person that holds back Buck from traveling is his love for Thornton. If Buck here's a good tactic if you're trying to prove your point, use an if statement. Okay, so if let's see how she does it. If Buck were fulfilled by his life with Thornton, he would not have the desire to travel towards the call. Buck enjoys being around Thornton, but he is a dog of the wild and belongs in the wild. In conclusion, I disagree that Buck is fulfilled by his lifestyle with Thornton because he is happy next to Thornton, but has a strong desire to travel in the wild due to his ancestors. So that was a really good job, Catherine, of acknowledging the other side, acknowledging that he does love Thornton, but overall, it's the wild where he would be fulfilled. That if statement was really good because that's a good way to prove your point is by saying what would happen if this were true. If you're saying if he was fulfilled, then the call wouldn't be so strong. So good. That's a good analysis trick. It's kind of you pulling the opposite if the opposite were true. All right, let's look at today's. Today we have two phrases where I just want you to dive into some complex phrases and interpret them using context clues from what's going on. So there's going to be a part. He kills a black bear. He kills an injured black bear at the beginning of this section, and he leaves it alone. He walks away from it. He returns to it to find a bunch of wolverines, and he attacks them. And it says towards the last part, it says, "And those that fled left two behind who would quarrel no more." You need to break down what that means, because yeah, using what you know about what just happened and about Buck, what does this phrase mean? Again, there's a simile on the next page. He knew how to take advantage of every cover, to crawl on his belly like a snake, and like a snake to leap and strike. You need to use your context clues and your knowledge of Buck and the events of the text to be able to interpret what that simile means. These are your options, obviously. And this part of the assignment is going to be similar to yesterday. Your question for today is, how does the time away impact Buck? You have to name how Buck has been affected and how he has changed. Okay? So when you see more evidence of Buck changing, really, I'll change this so it's even more clear. How has it changed Buck? And I'll change this so it's clearer too. So this right here is when you see something important that shows that Buck has changed. Over here, what did that evidence what did it demonstrate? What change did it demonstrate in Buck? Okay? Let's take a second to do the first one together. We're starting on page 76. Here it is. Right here. Again, we're looking for evidence that Buck has changed by his time in the wild. He began to sleep out at night, staying away from camp for days at a time. And once he crossed the divide at the head of the creek and went down to the land of timber and streams. There he wandered for a week, seeking vainly for fresh sign of the wild brother, killing his meat as he traveled, and traveling with the long, easy lope that seems never to tire. He fished for salmon in a broad stream that emptied somewhere into the sea, and by this stream he killed a large black bear, blinded by the mosquitoes while likewise fishing, and raging through the forest, helpless and terrible. Even so, it was a hard fight, and it aroused the latent remnants of Buck's ferocity. And 2 days later, when he returned to his kill and found a dozen wolverines quarreling over the spoil, he scattered them like chaff, and those that fled left two behind who would quarrel no more. All right, I think I just found an example of how Buck's time away has changed him. Guys, he just killed a bear, a large black bear, right? Um, I think that's a big deal. So I'm going to, what's the best quote to show that he killed the bear? This one right here. I'll just do this section. And by this stream, he killed a large black bear. Copy it, paste it, put in my put in my ellipses, put in my quotation marks. Put in my page number. Now time to do my analysis. So my evidence, and by this stream he killed a large black bear. What does this demonstrate? How does this demonstrate that the time away from camp is impacting Buck? What change does it demonstrate? To me, Buck fighting and killing a black bear demonstrates his time away from camp has made him stronger and fiercer. I'm going to say far, far stronger and fiercer than ever before. Earlier in the book, fighting huskies was a challenge for Buck. Now he's developed. Now his time in the wild have developed his strength and instincts to the point where he can kill much larger animals. All right, so that's what you do. Find a significant piece of evidence, and then in demonstrated change, really just dive into what that shows. Don't just repeat a lot. The main thing that we, my feedback for the day, the main thing that we did that we can improve on from what we did yesterday today is from evidence to demonstrated change. Don't just repeat your evidence. Don't simply repeat what the evidence said. Dive into what it means. Dive into what it shows / means. Okay? Don't just summarize what the evidence already told you. Dive into what it means, get deeper. Explain it to me. Break it down. All right? That's what analysis is. All right, you guys have a few pages to read today. And like always, can't wait to read your responses tomorrow. Have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow today.